Hi and welcome back to part 2 of milled yarn versus spun yarn. I'm just putting these yarns in, so I've got 450-gram skeins of DK weight in the 50% is it Como? It was 50% Como, 25% Lonk and 25% was it Lotus Fibre? That was the one. So obviously from the other video you saw me blending them and stuff like that. So these I'm putting in here now. So I'm going to dye one of my hand spun alongside 2 of the mill spun yarns. So I've just put a little bit of water in the base of this tray. When I put these mill spun yarns on the website, you'll get, for the 100 grams, you'll get 2 skeins. It's just the way that they've been sent from the supplier. I just thought it'd be easier to sort of dye them together in the same tray, just so I get the same effect off of each of them anyway. And they'll be down the same colour. I've got 2 trays of it, so I've got 2 100 grams of hand spun, and I have got in total 4 50 grams of mill spun, and we're just going to put them in the tray like this, and then I'm going to get my dyes and I'm going to mix up the colours that I want to use in these today. Okay, so I'm just going to pour out. These have been sat soaking. Can you see how much my hands submerged in that water? They've been sat soaking. So what I'll do is I'll just grab these, lift them out a second, give them a little bit of a gentle squish, and just plop them on top of it while I pour out some of this water. So if you do that, you would see that the water's a little bit cloudy, so that's just the residual dust and any oil, machine oil and things like that from the milling process, and the carding of the fibre from that process as well. So quite easily just manoeuvre my hand spun wool. I've tried to do a DK weight, but I've not been regimented in the way that I've spun it. I've just been a little bit more carefree. See, when you work yourself out of, and I don't know if many of you guys have got the same problem, you work yourself out of doing DK yarn because you want to better your spinning and be able to get a thinner yarn. So once you do that, your muscle memory forgets how to be a little bit looser and inconsistent, in the sense of you want a thicker density of weight. So it's a bit hard to try and find that momentum again. Yeah, it's a bit difficult, and there's quite a few of us out there that are like, oh, I can't do it that way anymore. There we go. So that's that one in there, and then do another one. I haven't put any water in the base of that. I have to do that. I'll have to do that. I'll have to remember to do that in a minute. Right, I need to find this before it plies itself, gets itself all mixed up and tangled. There we go. Right, so start with one at the beginning and one at the end, and then just sugar it along until all it looks a little bit even and you haven't got any gaps seeing the tray too much in the middle. And because I'm using hand spun, I can definitely make sure that these wedged out a little bit more. There we go, easy peasy. So I've just put some liquid on the base here, and I'm just going to put a little dash of water again on the base here, just so there's water there, and then get the citric acid, and we're going to dye all these at the same time. So as you know, I use a coffee scoop of citric acid in each. It's not a lot. I think I weighed it out once, and there's roughly about 5 grams of citric acid. Right, so I hope you enjoyed the last video and found it useful. I've still got the organic merino yarn to mess around with, and I've got another one upstairs as well that I want to play with. So we'll get onto those next month. Well, yeah, next month, because we're in May now. So we'll get onto those next month. If anyone's got any suggestions of videos you'd like to see, please let me know. It's been a bit chaotic here. We've had family, we've got friends, I've had students come up and I've been teaching, so I've not had a lot of spare time this last month, and hence the delay of a week in between these videos going out. Plus it's been bank holiday weekends as well. We've had 2 this month, so it's been I've been really busy. Let me just grab my die trays. What colours I want? I want the reds. I want the red die tray, the die box. So this is my die box of reds and maroons. So I want those, and I want I think I want the green one, or browns and yellows. A sec. I want these 2 here. Oh, having a fight with a blinking box in the back cupboard. Didn't want to behave itself. I just plonk that one there, and then we're going to make up some dye solution. So I'm just going to warm the water up out of the tap, because that works just as well. I'm going to get it to a decent temperature. My kettle goes to about 50 degrees Celsius. So I'm quite happy with that temperature. It's enough to melt the dye stock in the tray, or in my stock, in my little pot. So give me a second. Okay, so this one is going to be really, I hope really pretty. It's how I've got it in my imagination. It's from a picture with cherry blossoms and Mount Fuji in the background. It's like a grey, white, and like a rich dark pink. So what I've gone with is Dharma dyes Bordeaux. The Bordeaux B. It's a special type of dye. It's more used for millinery dyeing as well as acid dyeing. Then I'm using tornado grey, I'm using silver grey and platinum grey, all with their own little tones. So what we're going to start off with is my silver grey. I'm going to pour that in here, and I'm going to go straight in from the bottom. I've got 2 pots for each of the trays. So can you, hold on a second, I'll just peel you up a little bit so you can see. So I'll do this tray first, and then you can see what I'm doing next. So I'm just gonna push that in like that, get that dye to go up. I'm leaving the top half more or less white, because the other colours will transition through on the bottom, on the other side anyway. Let that heat up and we'll flip it over. Okay, so bear with me a second, and I'll just get the other dyes. They're over the other side of the kitchen. So we'll just pour another jug of this one over the top here, and back down the bottom as well. Make sure it's completely saturated. Give it a bit of a push down with my hand. Okay, make sure, don't worry if you've still got some white bits left over on the edge, and hopefully they'll cover over, but we want bits of white in with the grey anyway. That's fine. So I'm now going to turn on the heat in there, and turn the heat on my other ring as well, and let those colours strike and set, and then we'll come back to that in a minute. We'll flip it over once it's cooled. Just put some more dye in this pot here, so I've got enough for the other side. Right, put this grey back in its box. These won't take long to do at all. It won't take a lot of time. I'll put the picture up if I can find it on my Pinterest, and I'll pop the picture of what my inspiration is. I wasn't really sure which way to go colour wise this time, because I've got so many pinks and purples up the stairs and blues. I wanted to go something a little bit different, and a colour I've never tried before. And usually we bunker everything up, don't we? I want these colours to blend through, and it's not so much bleed into each other, but create a drama and more of a flow of colours. so it feels more natural than bunching up the middle and making it a really solid coloured section. I wanted these to be a bit more free flowing, so this shouldn't take too long at all. Yeah, so I'll be back with you in a second when we wait for this to cool down and we can flip it over and it's not too hot for my handies. But can you see the colour fade going up there? It's got a darker down here and up that way. So we actually we didn't use the silver grey on this section. We used the platinum, the tornado. The tornado was the darker colour, then the silver grey when we flip it over, and I'll use the platinum, which is my lightest grey, on the other side, and then we'll use this gorgeous vivid, look at this, vivid Bordeaux, really lovely rich pinky red wine colour is where we're going on that. I'll just make sure it's blended up properly. There we go. Looking forward to seeing how these turn out. Lovely colours for the winter months as well, especially with them in a DK weight. They make for a nice little cravat scarf. So I'll turn the heat down on those because I don't want them to steam or bubble. I just want them to have a bit of a heat. Can you see that coming off now? And the odd little pop from the temperature coming through as well. But we'll get back to these in a minute. Okay, once it's all colour set. Let me just hold a minute, let me just get my tongs. I do apologise, my dogs do tend to go off on one for no reason. The colour, yeah, there's still a little bit of grey left in the base of that water. Yeah, it's not completely clear to my happiness anyway. So we'll let the, as I say, we'll let the heat do what it needs to do, its magic. And then once it's cooled down, we'll flip it over and we'll put the other colours on, and I'll show you how I do that. So that should be cool enough for us now to flip over the 6 skeins that we've got in the dye trays. So let's get you propped up and we will give it a go. Okay, so I'll just get my tongs out of the way and we will give these, yeah, they're not too bad actually. So we're going to flip them, literally twist them around and relay them back down exactly how I did them last time. So one side in, and then squish it up in the middle. You'll see it a bit better when I'm the further along I get. Still quite warm, but it's not scalding hot. So flip it around, start down the bottom, squish that up the top, and then lay your middle in and just give it a little wiggle until it's how it looked in your picture. So you had the cream up the top, a bit of grey in the middle, there we go, and then do the same on this one. Flip it around so you've got your whites, your untouched areas with your, where you're going to put your second colours section in there. Just give it a little shuffle around, get them roughly about the same in colour. Wash, there we go, right, and repeat. Flip that. This, do you know, this one feels cooler than that one does. Right, flip that around. Try and get the shades the same. Again, up we go, and then voila. And then the next one, lift, flip it over, down the bottom, up the top, and then use your middle to scoot it to where you need it to be. Okay, and then last one, there we go, and up the top. Oh, that one needs to come around a bit more. There we go, that's it. Grey about the same as where it was. Perfect. There we go. So we're going to go with my which one is this one? The platinum grey. Let me just double check. Have I got platinum grey? Yeah, I must have done. And we're going to put this in here on that one, and up the top here on that one. Then we're going to go in with the pink down the bottom, like so. And again, whoop. How come an empty tub's the loudest thing ever when there's no TV on? Right, and then we've got my silver grey, which we're going to put in the middle here. And again, in the middle here. And we're going to like that. Look at that. Okay. Yeah, again, a bit of a squish about. There you go, like that. Okay, put the heat back on again. Just dry my hands off. Now, because this is the Bordeaux B and it's a stronger pigment of dye than what you would normally get, I'm just going to add a little bit extra citric acid, because sometimes it can take a little bit longer to saturate away into the fibres. Sometimes a bit like your turquoise and fuchsia, they're really strong pigments. So are these dyes. Now, citric acids have always been used in millinery dyeing anyway, but these ones are specifically created for a bit more pigmentation. They're a lot darker. I've got a navy one, and I have got a grey one that are a lot darker in colour and pigment than what my other dyes are. So we're going to go with that, and we're going to stick these away. These will get washed later on, and we'll let that do its job. It looks really quite red at the moment on your screen, but I absolutely promise you, it's not red. It is a burgundy. Okay, but obviously these have got to dry in front of the fire. Thankfully, it's actually raining today, so I can have an excuse to put my fire on and get these dried up, hopefully by this evening, and then I can get this video finished and get on for the week before, because we're in the last week of May now. We just had a bank holiday weekend, so hopefully I can get these done and ready. Got both of them on, no I haven't, dried, so before the weekend, unless anything else crops up. Right, there we go. I'm loving it. I really love the look of them. Because of the grey, it's got a slight bluey background to some of the greys. They're a purpley background. So the way that this red pinky colour has really soaked into it gives it a really good deep vibe, and the different shades of grey. So I'm really interested to see how this looks when it's finished, and to see whether the actual hand-dyed wool has struck the dye a little bit differently from the mill dyed, as in, is it softer? Has the blending changed the way that the yarn actually melds together with the different colours? Who knows? But we'll find out tomorrow once this is all dried up. Yeah, interesting to see how this looks. So we're just going to let this do its thing. Turn it down low. I'm going to shunty this one up a little bit because the ring's in the middle, and I'm more interested in the Bordeaux actually being struck with the heat, because my ring's right there in the middle, and this one, the ring's down the bottom here. So I'm quite happy with the way that they're situated at the moment. But yeah, I'm very intrigued to see what the results of these will be. So I'll catch you once these have all cooled down and the dye is struck. Got a little while to go, hence I put in the extra citric acid on the off chance that this strikes slightly differently. But yeah, I'll catch you back in a minute. Okay, so I'll come and check on these, and there is still some colour in the base there. Fine. And this one, there's still some colour. So I really need this to dissipate as much as possible. Don't mind if it's got a little slight tinge later on, just a hint of pink in the water, but I really need it. So I'm going to add some more citric acid into the pot, and a bit more into this one as well. Okay, and give them a good another few minutes on that heat. I'm going to turn this one up a tad, and that one's up as high as I'm happy with. This one I want to just turn up a little bit more, and wait for them to saturate more until I'm happy with the colour of the water. Let's have a look at, oh, sugar. Let's have a look at the top. Yeah, it's clear. It's clear at the top. It's clear there. It's clear there. And then it starts to get a little bit pinky toned in there. So I'm quite happy with the way it's saturated into the fibres. I just want this to penetrate a bit more of the yarn and the fibre. See, it's not massively, and that's because I've just added that citric in there as well. I would say this one, I need the heat up a little bit more. Yeah, and we'll take it from there. So we'll give that another 7 minutes or so in that bath, and then we'll turn the heat off, and I'll be back when you want to do that. Okay, so the heat's off now permanently. I've turned the gas hob off, and you can see the water's got a very slight pink tinge. Now I've got to wait for this to cool down a bit before I can rinse it off, but it is all clear. And if there is any last remnants of dye stock, then it will penetrate into the fibre, if it possibly can. Okay, that's the best thing to do, is just leave that the way it is. This one down here practically disappeared again. Oh, steam. Quite happy with the way that is. It's got a bit of a pinky tinge. Again, I'm just going to leave that until the remaining of the dye stock this will cool in this water, and that may dissipate to complete clear afterwards. But I'm quite happy with that. We'll leave that the way it is now. I'll get this washed. What I do when I wash it is I put it in the sink of lukewarm hand water, and a half cap of concentrated, not even a half cap, a quarter cap of concentrated fabric conditioner. It just helps balance out the pH levels. Some people say to use an actual dedicated liquid that's for silks and wool fibres. I wouldn't. Wools and silk fibres liquid detergent for hand wash is full of enzymes, and eventually that, if you use it too often, it can break down the fibre molecules in your wool. So really you want to avoid that. It's all right doing it once in a blue moon if you're away on holiday and that's all you've got. If you're lucky enough to be able to get a hold of Eucalan, use that as well. Not Eucalan or Synthropol. That helps neutralise the pH balance in from the acid dye stock that's in the tray now. But me and many others just use a fabric conditioner or a hand wash, a mild one, not too much enzymes in there, but a really sensitive one would be just as good. You know, like one that you use for babies, fabric conditioner. Just something really soft and gentle, just enough to help bring down that pH balance. And then once you've done that and left it to settle in the water for about half an hour, then rinse it through thoroughly with very lukewarm water straight from the tap, just to make sure it's thoroughly rinsed and there is no dye left in there, not running through, and as the water's actually clear. Okay, so I'm going to do that, let these cool down. They're going to go in the sink, and then I'll dry them, and I'll come back to you with the results of the yarn and a knitted swatch so you can see what it looks like as an end result. Especially with the way that this has been dyed, the swatch will show you what it potentially can look like. So I'll catch you in the next part of this video. Right, next day, and the yarns are dry. And it's quite a surprising result we've ended up with. So now take consideration that if you've ever used grey dyes before, okay, you can get some really good dyes that are a true grey. And one of my favourite ones is the grey dye. I haven't bought it for ages, so I can't guarantee that this is correct. But the last time I purchased the grey from World of Wool's own dyes, it was a true grey. When I ever dyed anything with it, it was lovely grey tones. There was no seepage of an undercolour come through. It was like a proper grey, like a grey paint. So the Dharma dyes that I used yesterday is Tornado Grey, Silver Grey and Platinum. Now Platinum was my favourite one, and it does have a slight tinge to the colour, but it's usually one of the truest colours that I can use if I'm looking for a grey. And there's another one that I didn't use yesterday, which is called Grey, is it Grey G? And that's a Dharma dye, but it's heavily pigmented. And you need quite a lot of citric acid with that, and that's usually a really true grey as well, but I decided not to use that yesterday because the effect that I was looking for. So I'll pop a little picture up now, one or two pictures, just to give you an idea of what I was looking for or what I wanted to create with this yarn. So we were working, and also I used the Bordeaux Bee, which is a heavily pigmented, and you really don't need a lot of that dye anyway when you're working with it. So the results were, so this is the Silver Grey. So remember, I'll put a picture up now. I took some pictures while I was doing the dyeing process yesterday, just to remind you of what it looked like in the tray. So first of all, I laid my wool out full length, scrunched it up a little bit just so it would sit in, it would flow. And I added in on the first base, 3/4 up the way, well, halfway up, I poured it, the Tornado Grey. And I shimmied that and left it at least the top quarter of the wool in its natural state, okay? So if I just undo this now. And then I went in, once it cooled down, and I'll pop the picture up now, and I added in the Bordeaux. I added in the Bordeaux colour. So there you go, there's the Bordeaux. There's the remnants of the Tornado Grey from the first side before I flipped it. And then you've got some little bits of natural white in there as well. That's from the first layer. Then on the second layer, I then added in, let me try and just get this to length, there we go. Then I added in the Bordeaux over the top, and then the Silver Grey, which is a little bit darker, and then the Platinum at the bottom, which is the sort of grey splodges. Now the Silver Grey and the Tornado Grey both have a bit of a purple undercurrent, okay, hence I went with the Bordeaux. So to just help mute that out, so you have got grey elements, you're getting the grey elements, okay, but I'm seeing more of a dusky grey tones, but more with the bleed from the Bordeaux through there. But it's turned out absolutely beautiful. Look at it. And you've got more of a flow in there as well in comparison to when I've done the other dyes where we've blocked it off. And I'll just go and grab one for you now and I can show you. So when I was doing the Easter bundle sets, I did some yarns, and I showed the videos are up on YouTube for you to see them. And that was from a couple months ago. They are up there. And you saw me dyeing this one, which was called I'm sure I called it Cherry Blossom. So you start off with a baby pink, and then in the middle of the actual tray, we plonked off this section in the middle. So I did pink, and I banked up the middle section of the yarn, and we did this apple green to stop it from bleeding too much. There is a little bit of bleed, but I have got really strong solid colour change to a point here. And then you can see it again with the pink section here, and you can actually see these faded sections where the fibres have been scrunched up together. So with this one, which is a slightly different way that it's been dyed, you've got more of a flow of colours. Yes, you have got sections where the colours look quite blocky, but in actual fact the colours have really bled through into the other colours to make it look more like, from my point of view, like a purpley colour going into a soft grey. There's more of a flow about it, whereas this one you can definitely see that there's a more of a stop of the yarn in the colour change from that pink into that peach and then into the apple green. So there is a difference when you mess around and layer out your yarns in the tray, and the way that you dye them. It can have more striking look and more. That's it, that's how it's going. You've got a little bit of bleed, but when you're working with colours that have very similar background underneath, because a lot of the dyes are actually pigmented and mixed with other colours to create the colour that you're buying. So like, I'm trying to think, you have got, say, teal, forest green. I'm going with Dharma dyes. Forest green, for example, that's got a blue background, but it's also green in there, and it is like a bluey green colour, and sometimes that can split and it'll come out more with the greens than it will the blues. It depends. Lots of different factors that can be created in that. Is citric acid. Adding it too soon sometimes can create that issue with split dyes. Sometimes it's best just to let the actual pigment of the dye saturate into your fibres, and then once the heat's applied and the dye is saturating through and the water's starting to clear up a little, then add your citric acid in to help fix that in, and then hopefully that should stop that process of splitting. There's another colour that I use, it's called periwinkle, and it's a purple colour, and it's got pinky undertones to the lilac, to the purple colour, and sometimes if I add my citric acid too soon, it does split and I will see pokes of it. There's another one, it's the electric, not electric violet, it's the fluorescent purple. Is it called electric purple? Do you know, I can't remember the name of it, but it's a fluorescent purple Dharma dye, and that one as well, it can split. You'll get the violet, but then you also got the neon fuchsia that will really come through and show itself, even when you're not actually using the neon pink in the dye. That does poke through. And again, have an experiment yourself. If you've got neon colours at home or dyes that split, have a little experiment and see. Do one tray with some roving in there without any citric acid, just as dye stock. Put your roving in with the citric acid, then add your dye stock, and then the other one, add your citric acid afterwards, before you're about to take it off the heat, just to fix that dye in. And you have a look, see if there's a difference. Have you solved the problem? Have you stopped the dye from splitting? It can be something as simple as that. It could also be as simple as the pH balance of your water. Maybe your own water is quite high acidic level as well, depending on what type of source you get from your local water suppliers. Up here where I live, we've got quite soft water, so I don't have a problem with citric acid. It doesn't I don't have a problem with my water pH balance, so I don't see any differences whether I use less or more citric acid. But yeah, so I'm really quite pleased the way these have turned out. So there's the hand spun. Now, because I don't know if you probably won't see it, but there is a bit of a sheen. You can just make out there is a bit of a sheen to the actual yarn from the Lotus Fibre. Yeah, you can see it there. Look, see those little sections there where the fibre's not completely struck with dye, but it will dye a little bit. Remember, I only blended this twice. I could have run it through the carder 3 times to get more of a consistent blend, but I quite like the effect of it. Look at it, it looks speckled. Yeah, so that's my hand spun, really chunky, and I've done a swatch with a hand spun, and here are the other yarns. So these will be sold in 2 sets. So you get 100 grams, there's 250 grams. So when I put them on the website for next week's shop drop, then these will be available as well for you to purchase. So there are 50% is Como, 25% is Lonk, which is a British wool, and 25% is Lotus Fibre. And it's really it's nice. Make for a really good woolly hat. Pair of winter mittens, that sort of thing. It's a DK weight. Lengthwise, I'm not sure. I have to refer to, I don't even know if I wrote down the actual length of the DK yarn. I've got to have it somewhere. So yeah, this is the swatch that I did. So I rolled up one of my hand spun yarns into a bowl of yarn, and I did a 25 stitch, and there we go. So I mean, if I'd have done it on a 28 or maybe a 30, then maybe it would look a little bit different, but you've definitely got some stripes going on here, but with a gradient of color change through. So you've got like the this burgundy or Bordeaux color coming through, and then you've got the gray, and then the light gray or sort of off white coming through, and then it starts to change again through to here, and then it goes a darker color. So yeah, slightly striping, but it's not something to do a lot of swatches, but it's turned out and it's knitting up really, really lovely. When I do my knit, I do knit through the front loop to knit into the back, and then when I reverse it and I'm doing a knit stitch, I knit through the back loop with an overstitch. Yeah, there's a way I do it just to get really neat and tidy, stitch row, and then just 2 purl stitches either side just to try and square it off so it'll sit nice. So yeah, there's the swatch. So yep, they'll be on the website later on this week. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're watching over on on YouTube when this is released later on next week, there is a video, part 1 to this video, and that's the blending of this fibre and a little bit about the lotus fibre. I'm sure I spoke about it, that we were using in blending. Lotus fibre is a plant-based fibre, and it's completely organic, completely plant-based. There's no cellulose or anything like that in there, and it's a UV protectant because it's actually a natural byproduct from a lotus flower, and it's hand pulled from the stem of the plant. Yeah, so it's the lotus flowers are really just farmed from these large pond areas. So that's it. So it's a really good vegan fibre or vegetarian fibre, or a fibre that you might prefer to use. Even though you use wools, you want a fibre that is cruelty free. Yeah, and I know it sounds a bit contradictory, but we bred our sheep to the extent that we have to shear them, so it's more cruel to not shear the sheep than it is to leave the fleece on there and then suffer, because some of the sheep in around the world were all bred where they do not cast their fleece anymore. Herdwicks cast their fleece, and there's a couple other breeds that do as well, but generally we as human beings over centuries have bred our sheep to grow fleeces and not cast them off. So it's more cruel not to do it, and animal protection rights as well, because it can get all sorts of bugs and that eat them and everything else if you don't keep them clean, tidy, and shear them. Anyway, I'll not go down that one. Just letting you know, sometimes being what's the word, politically correct is not always the ideal solution. I suppose it's probably not politically correct, but it's sometimes you have to do things that other people see as being cruel when in actual fact it's not. We created the problem, so we have to be the solution. There we go. Anyway, that's me now, up on my soapbox. I'm off. Take care of yourselves, and I will catch you up soon. June dye pots and yarn spin, which is the topic for this year. If you just want me to put another video in, please just let me know. I've had a lot going on. I've had students at the house and in the studio. I've been doing demos and stuff like that, so I've not had a lot of time going on, but I am trying my best to get these videos out. The one I've got next to do is called Boil and Mash 'em Stick 'em in a stew. It's another DK weight yarn. It's actually one of the Christmas specials from World of World. I don't think they're in stock anymore. This one's 75% Kent and 25 Kent Romney and 25% Blueface Leicester. Another DK weight yarn. And the other one that I have got is this one that I was supposed to do a few months ago, and it is organic merino, 100% organic merino. So yeah, let me know what you'd like to do. This is a 4-ply one, which I'd love to spin another 4-ply, because I'm not really good anymore at spinning a DK weight. It's all winky wonky. So let me know what you'd like me to do, or if you want me to do something else or something you've not seen me do before in a video demonstration, please put it down in the comments. The feedback really does help me create more content. I really do appreciate that. If you're on YouTube and you've not already subscribed, I would say, I think I'm looking at 35% of my viewers do not subscribe to my channel for whatever reason, but the regular viewers, they just don't subscribe, and it's free. It's totally free. It's just there for YouTube to say, oh, this channel has got subscribers, people are watching this, that and the other. And leaving feedback and comments down below, and even a thumbs up really does help my channel to be noticed on the algorithms. I'm not bothered about, I don't get paid for doing this. I do this out of the goodness of my heart. I'm running a business, and I just like to share what I know and a bit of knowledge along the line, along the way as well, if you're interested. Right, take care of yourselves, and I will catch up with you in June with the next blending video over on Patreon for the Mills versus hand spun editions, and then you guys will get the dye version of those results at the end of June. Okay, take care for now. Bye.